Ah, yes. The Loli Shota question. One of the most infamous questions out there on the internet. But hello there, dear viewer. Now, while you're watching this video, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you thought I made some good points, you liked the video, or you just think I gave some normal arguments, unlike the other parts of the internet. If you somehow managed to find this video, find it interesting, and click on it, you did it for 2 or 3 reasons. One is that you started watching anime and you wanted to know about this topic. 2 is that you know about it, but you're not sure whether it's okay or not. Or 3, you're a goddamn Lolicon waiting to spam in the comment section and or trying to find excuses about your fetishes. Congrats! I will do 2 out of the 3 there, with the 3rd giving some logical arguments for you to fight on Twitter and not be a total fucking limp dick dipshit. Albeit, I'm heavily against that shit. Now, as I said this, I will have to clarify. Personally, I do not like NSFW Loli or Lolicon stuff. NSFW. I find it disturbing, morally weird, shit, and frankly, creepy. I am not against SFW stuff, which is the whole point of the Loli genre in general, by the way. Now, to start, I'm gonna need to explain the difference between Loli and Lolicon, because there are differences. They're kind of intertwined, but they're not the same. You see, Loli is a genre drawing. It's an art style that depicts short petite girls in a cute way, which may or may not make them look childlike. Some of them are not even children. There's a big difference between them, lady and gentlemen. And there are multiple versions, like I said, that I found during my deep dive into discovering what the fuck is actually this genre or not. And it may or may not scar me for life in some cases. And frankly, I do not mind that if it's not obscene, really. There are many illegal lolis. There are some drawings that are quote-unquote loli, but you can definitely see that they are actually fully grown adult men or women. Same can be implemented with shotas, but boys. Now, why do some people draw loli? Well, some people draw because it's a cute art style. Frankly, that's perfectly understandable and justified. Some people like cute art. What can we say? Some also draw loli because they're still learning to draw, by the way. It's actually somewhat like an advanced form of chibis, which is also a cute and petite drawing style that is trademarked with a big head and small body. Anatomy is hard, ladies and gentlemen, and if you ever try to fucking draw, you will know that it takes a lot of knowledge about the human anatomy to even draw something, even in manga style. And Loli makes it practicable. You see, you can practice anatomy while still making it small, petite, and cute, but you're learning how to advance and step up to actual full-blown drawings. Now, if that was the case alone, I would not have to make this video and many other people making videos about this topic. But, Rule 34 of the internet, if it exists, there's of it.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Now, during the return of a specific fellow Vtuber, which I will not name because if you know, you know, and is the whole reason why I'm making this video in the first place, they came back with a $9,000 model, basically $9,000 of a model, and the internet, well, it has a long memory, and they remembered what the fuck he did, apart from being a huge ass he was a massive Shota, which may more line borderlines now with real things, let's say. To give a TLDR, a short version of it, what is a loli or Shota? Those are people who sexualize fictional characters that have a childlike appearance, petite appearance, or frankly, they are children in some cases. I'm gonna fucking throw up right now, by the way.
What? What the fuck?
Now, the main question of all of this, and I'm gonna get straight to the point. Is it pedophilia? And to give it an answer, as somebody who actually practices law, well, I have some practice, I'm still a law student, but I asked judges about this. The answer is yes and no. No. It's a gray area, to be precise. See, the problem with labeling this as that is that the characters themselves are fictional. Surprise for you all, but fictional characters have no fucking rights, and frankly, they are not human. So an actual child getting harmed in this fictional act is not real. The fictional child is getting harmed, and frankly, you cannot harm fictional characters. Only the Lolicon or Shotacon is hurting themselves with consuming that type of content, from what they say. Because I took a deep dive down Reddit to find Lolicons and interviewed them, which I will not show here because I want to respect their internet privacy as well. There's also the problem with the types of lolis, like I mentioned, albeit I do not excuse the 3,000-year-old girl looking like a 13-year-old excuse. It's just plain old stupid. Don't give me that shit. Fuck off.
That's some old bullshit.
And now, to add in their favor arguments, most of them in fact actually separate fiction from reality, and frankly they do not like minors. They're not into them. Mostly. We'll get to that later, by the way. In fact, a lot of them actually hate children, surprisingly, because they're annoying, snotty, and genuinely have no attraction to them, like most people. Actually, hell, most Loli fans, not Lolicons, like Loli characters because it actually somehow flips the switch of their parental nature. You see, they actually see the minors lolis, by the way, minor lolis that are canonically children, as somewhat of their children and shit and whatnot, which is surprisingly wholesome. They get to actually feel like they're their parent. They embrace their happiness. They feel happy for that Loli as well, or Shota, like an actual parent seeing happiness in their own child becoming happy as well. Frankly, that's somewhat interesting, and I do not mind that logic, to be precise. But what I gave you all were mitigating circumstances, because this wouldn't be a video if it actually was harmless, right? Far from it. Now, let's get into the meat and gravy of my shitting on them now. While in fact most are not maps, Lolicons and Shotacons, a nice chunk of them are actually pedos, because, well, a shit ton of Lolicon art has canonical minors in them who are below the age of 13, and a lot of them lurk and hide in that said community and feed their urges with the said hentai indulgence. Granted, porn does lower the sexual urges of people most of the time, and in fact prevents them from going after a child, which is correct about that. Now, a lot of pedophiles actually do admit that they consume that shit, and after that, they won't even think about the child. But sadly, that's not always the case, because some form of porn is banned, and for a reason. Because there is a chance, and that's proven, that it can actually do the opposite. It can encourage the urge, because sometimes they cannot separate fiction from reality. Sometimes they will actually act upon that fantasy to actually feel it in real life. It is about the fiction that's not doing it anymore for them, whether it be a video, whether it be manga doujin. And eventually, they want to act on it. I mean, remember that one Vtuber who is heavily in the guro type of hentai, which is gore, by the way, and eventually, she stapled her own fucking cunt because the urge became unbearable anymore. Remember that? I have a long memory as well, Twitter. Well, the same can go to actual pedos, by the way, or people who have the latent nature of said map. Because being that is not a choice. It's a state of mind, which you can, in the early stages, snip it in the bud. My own example during practice in our high court, it can be somewhat useful. During my practice last year, I was in our high court working under a judge in crimes against children. And frankly, it's actually its own separate court here. And I had a case. I was in from the start to finish, where the defendant was someone who sexually assaulted a minor. You know what I mean. With the intent of doing you know what. During the said hearing, the prosecution outlined in his hidden external hard drive, which had a lot of CP, but also he had 4 gigs of Lolicon hentai, which was put in there 1 year before he got his first CP video. Now this is a very important thing, because during the hearing, when he eventually took a plea deal and admitted guilt, he admitted that at the first, he did not have any urges whatsoever. He was latent someone. Then, out of curiosity, he found hentai and eventually Lolicon. Something in him actually clicked when he found Lolicon art, and he really liked it. He liked it because it was a child. Not it was a fictional character, but it was a child. That's what he said. Eventually, after some time, the Dojins just was not giving the same satisfaction anymore. He wanted more of said thing. He wanted something living. And in that Lolicon community, albeit he did not say he wanted to shag a minor, and try to normalize his thoughts, because a lot of Lolicons do feel the guilt of liking that kind of content. Why the hell do you think they're overly defending it? Somebody who is really has something of a guilty pleasure, they will defend that shit to death, especially online, because anonymity. Eventually, he caved in, went to the dark web, and you all know the rest. I'm not saying Lolicon actually made him into a pedo, but it did click his latent state of mind. Probably earlier than it would have awakened naturally. Maybe it wouldn't have at all. Maybe he would have gotten therapy if he wasn't encouraged by the Lolicon community, albeit they did not know he was an actual thing. Lolicons and Shotacons actually like to police themselves with those people, and they will first be there to report them. Now, the medical expert in psychology who was in the court, who was asked to give her thoughts, also was not surprised, for there is research about that pictures that depict a specific action hits the same spots of the brain as if the subject does it themselves. And sexual images are no exception. Why do you think people wank off to porn pictures? Now, I want to reiterate, this only happens if you already get off to it or have the latent urge to it. If you already get off to it because that person, well, that fictional character actually is a minor, you're already in a fucking trip to hell. Now, I also found that the main excuse of Lolicons that they use is there is no set specific research of Lolicon hentai actually being CP. Well, here's a counter argument that is actually quite simple, really. The same research subject is taboo. The same reason why people wank off to, for instance, stepbrother, stepsister, stepmother porn is because it's taboo. It's weird as shit and it excites people, right? And that's the most reason why Lolicons actually do it, because they cannot do it in real life, nor they will, but they find that taboo so fucking weird that they get off to it. Now, because also it's said taboo, it's a major taboo to the point where it could damage the expert's reputation for even trying to research this shit. Because of that, most researchers and medical experts actually stay clear of it unless they 100% know their shit and they know how to present it well enough so that it won't damage their reputation because of a mistake. And because the fear, if that research is good enough, that actual pedophiles can get an excuse for it. So no, it's not that actually, my dear Lolicons, that it's because it isn't CP. It's mostly because people, medical experts to be precise, do not want to touch that shit. Lolicon has ties to pedophilia, and that is a fact. I mean, it's based on the novel called Lolita, and frankly, I'm not going to describe it. Just Google that shit because it makes me puke thinking of it.
You can take yourself out of this existential nightmare.
Now, if it wasn't tied to pedophilia, or doesn't have ties to it, elements of it, why the hell do you think actual pedophiles lurk in your community? Just saying. Also, to add the excuse of Asian culture, because, and we won't get it because we're Westoids, it's just fallacy what that excuse is. Eastern people, I'm Eastern European, but Asians hate pedophilia as much as we. Frankly, sometimes they hate it even more. Now, also to add as a legal aspect of this. Judges and prosecutors specifically do not give a flying fuck about otaku culture, and they will not take it in consideration during the said case because they only want to know if the fictional character is actually a minor or depicted as a minor, and you got off to that specific fact. That's why most countries like Australia, UK, Canada, Norway, to name a few, banned fictional porn of depicting of minors and equated it to CP because, and I agree with this, it's a possible danger. And with children involved, people take no chances of it. Because I will give you an answer in the form of a question. If you know someone who is getting off to fictional drawings of childlike characters or actual children that are fictional, would you let them babysit your minor child under the 13 year of age alone? Hell no, because humans are in fact hard programmed to protect children and remove any possible danger to them, even if it's a 1% chance of happening. That's why a lot of people just fume out of this topic alone, let alone the fact that there are CSA survivors whose assailants did consume Lolicon material and eventually, well, you know what to them. Whether they cannot separate fact or fiction is irrelevant to the court, and frankly, it is an outliner, yes, but it can happen, and sometimes it has happened before, and it's not a small chance. But that does not give people excuses to also call somebody up online or in real life just because of Lolicon. Remember, and I'll give you this as somebody who will be a fucking legal professional. In the end, this is a very, very hard accusation. And a very serious one. You need very hard evidence to back your claim. Because most countries will not accept this as evidence. Only if it actually made their urges uncontrollable and they acted upon it. Do not call somebody that just because you got angry. I know the reason why you got angry. I get it. I understand it. But it makes my future job and the jobs of current judges and prosecutors harder because that's libel. And if they eventually do something that shit, they will get a lesser sentence. Just call them fucking creeps. Because frankly, even though you're not a full pedophile, you still get off to fictional childlike characters, and most of them are children, again. And that is creepy as fuck. Keep it to yourself, goddammit. So, to sum it up. No, it's not technically CP, but it does have ties to pedophilia. Most of the time, it does not make people act on children, but it can someone who is a latent map or actual map to go out there and satiate their urges and act upon them. And frankly, I think it should be banned, but not because it is CP, but in fact, it has the threat of normalizing CP and objectifying the potential victim in the mind of the map. For they are constantly telling themselves that that's only fictional. And also, they're trying their best to persuade themselves that is okay. The mind is very good at persuading themselves. Eventually, they will, with the reassurance of the community out there, that it's okay. I mean, they know it's bad, but it's okay for them to feel. That's what they tell themselves. And that's why Norway banned it, for instance, because the potential danger alone could harm a child and normalize CP. And frankly, a judge or a prosecutor won't take even a 0.01 chance of that happening. And I agree with that statement. But if you strictly keep it in your pants, in your room, in your four walls, and try not to give yourself an excuses of denying that it has ties to pedophilia, then go off, son. You're just a creep. Thanks for watching.